Hello, everybody. It's Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News, sportsdaydfw.com, your Rangers insider. I have decided to try and do some video reports for you. We'll see how these go. We'll certainly take feedback. And before I go any further, if you want to ask me a question, leave a comment, or anything else, you can tweet me at Evan_P_Grant, or email me at egrant@dallasnews.com. I'll be happy to answer Ranger questions on here whenever I can. And if I don't have the answer, I'll just fake it. But in the meantime, I thought we'd start you out as we get ready for the GM meetings in San Diego, or rather Carlsbad, California, with some thoughts on where the Rangers are right now, some news of the last week, and maybe just some assorted ramblings about the team. Anyway, as I sit here on Monday night recording this before the GM meetings start, I just finished a column writing about Clayton Kershaw and the Rangers, and I really feel like the Los Angeles Dodgers did the Rangers a big favor on Sunday by deciding not to offer Clayton Kershaw a qualifying offer. I think that what it does is it allows the Rangers to actually start negotiating with a high-profile free agent, albeit one who is coming off of a season with significant injury. He's got the flexor tendon muscle situation that limited him to 4 starts after the All-Star, really after July 4th. He came back again in September, and on October 1 had to leave a game after just a little bit over an inning. Did not pitch in the postseason, and he's been resting it really since the 1st of October. And doctors have assured him that there is not going to be a need for a Tommy John type surgery. I think that there's a rest period that will probably last through the end of this month, November, and then he would start to try and maybe test it out as he gets ready for a typical spring training. But with the Dodgers not offering the qualifying offer of $18.4 million, it means that there will be no draft compensation attached to signing Clayton Kershaw. And you can't say the same about most of the other high-profile free agents the Rangers might pursue this offseason. All of the shortstops that figure in the mix, Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, Trevor Story, and Marcus Semien all received that offer. Pitchers such as Noah Syndergaard and Max Scherzer both received it. So did outfielders like Michael Conforto and Nick Castellanos. So any of those guys at this point in time, if you were to sign them before the current collective bargaining agreement ends on December 1st, the team that signs him would all have to give up their second highest draft pick for the first of those, and then assorted draft picks after that. In the case of Kershaw, who did not receive the qualifying offer, none of that applies. And quite frankly, none of it may apply come the latter part of this offseason either. The qualifying offer is not something that's particularly attractive to players in negotiations, and stands to be a real negotiating point in the CBA talks if Rob Manfred and Tony Clark ever sit down and stop staring awkwardly at one another and actually get something done in terms of a new labor agreement. But that qualifying offer for those other players is probably going to put a freeze on the market until the rules are settled. Because right now, if you were to sign one of those players, you would owe giving up a draft pick. If the rules are changed after December 1, the new rules probably would not include draft pick compensation. However, what general managers and club presidents have all been operating under in terms of their operating instructions are that until that new CBA comes in, any player that's signed is probably going to be subject to the previous CBA. So I think that all those high profile guys that have a qualifying offer, and there were 14 of them altogether, to get any of those guys is going to cost you a draft pick, or you're going to have to assume it will cost you a draft pick. Whereas with Kershaw, you don't have to do that. Now, I also think that one thing the Rangers shouldn't do going into this whole conversation is consider the possibility that the fact that the Dodgers didn't offer him the $18.4 million qualifying offer means that the Rangers can come in with a low base and just incentives and whatnot. I think the Rangers are still going to have to look at the situation and say, in order to get Clayton Kershaw, even with the risks that come along with it, for 1 year or for multiple years, and I probably think it's going to take a multi-year deal to convince him to come to Texas. Those are the things that the Rangers are going to have to do. Just because the Dodgers didn't make the offer doesn't mean the Dodgers won't have interest down the road. And what Kershaw will have to weigh at that point in time is, does he want to go back to Los Angeles where he can win? He'll go into their rotation if he's healthy, and he can win immediately. If he comes to Texas, and Texas has a lot of attraction for Kershaw as his children get older, and as he continues to be a very involved father. I think that the idea of pitching in Texas and having the kids in a very normal routine would be very attractive to him. But let's face facts. The Rangers are not going to win in 2022. I expect them to be better, but I don't expect them to be playoff contenders. 2023 would be probably their best hope, and maybe 2024 is most realistic. So the goal here in Texas would be that you'd come here and hopefully be part of something and restoring and rejuvenating your hometown franchise, having already checked off the World Series box with the Dodgers. But just because he's won a World Series with the Dodgers certainly doesn't mean he's opposed to winning more World Series there. This is a guy who's an ultra competitor, and I think that would mean a lot to him to continue to compete for World Series. So if the Rangers want to do this, they're going to have to figure out creative ways to make sure that they can guarantee him money, and that they can potentially protect themselves a little bit in the process. What I will say about this, and I kind of pointed this out in the column that I just finished writing, is, hey, this team did take a chance on Corey Kluber and did guarantee $18.5 million when they made the trade that sent Emmanuel Clase and Delino DeShields to Cleveland 2 years ago. The Kluber deal didn't work out for the Rangers, but I think at this point in time, the club has less financial commitments, and they have more reason to go out and add somebody like Kershaw, who certainly fits all the characteristics of which the Rangers are looking for in terms of a championship-type player, a championship-type teammate, and somebody who would, I think, engage the fans. And this has been a disenfranchised fan base. If you're still listening 8 minutes into this thing, you're probably one of the few, because the Rangers have lost a number of fans in terms of any kind of significant interest over the last 5 years, the longest stretch of losing seasons in Rangers history. So they could use something that would really revitalize the fan base, that would help convince other free agents that the Rangers are serious about making real investments and improving this team. And if they do that, I think they've got a chance to really make a mark in November. And if baseball shuts down on December 1, whenever it shuts down, I think the Rangers, when the conversation picks back up, will have made an impression on everybody that they are a real player this offseason and will be taken a lot more seriously in conversations with players. It takes that kind of commitment, and it's going to take that kind of financial commitment to kind of dig themselves out of where they are right now. Because for players on the market, and there's a number of other players the Rangers will be interested in, including some of those players that are on the qualifying offer list. It's going to have to be brought to their attention that this team is legitimately serious. A couple other things. I didn't expect to ramble that long on Clayton Kershaw, but I thought that free agency situation needed some explanation. A couple of other things I wanted to hit on real quickly today, and we'll let you go. As we sit here on Monday night, the American League Rookie of the Year finalists were just announced. Adolis Garcia was not one of them, which comes as a little bit of a surprise to me. He was second among all rookies in home runs with 31, led all rookies in RBIs with 90. Those are traditional stats. He was among the top 5 rookies in all of MLB in baseball references calculation on WAR. And he led all rookies in outs above average according to MLB's StatCast system. So you take all that into consideration and the fact that he played 149 games, which is a very heavy workload for a rookie. I think he certainly qualifies as one of the top 3 rookies in the American League. He lost out to Randy Arozarena of Tampa Bay, who I expected would be one of the finalists. Pitcher Luis Garcia of the Astros, who I thought also had a very good shot at being one of the finalists. And the big surprise to me is Wander Franco, who was considered baseball's best prospect, but only played 70 games in the big leagues this year. Perhaps he was a victim of the Rays manipulating the roster and service time a little bit. But I think, especially where a rookie is concerned, unless you've got completely historic numbers, a la the 1.067 OPS that Yordan Alvarez had for Houston 2 years ago, then guys who played all season and had to go through that grind, and you talk to managers and executives, and the grind and the transition from minor league baseball to the major leagues is as hard a transition as any there is in sports, especially because the season is longer than anything they've ever encountered at any level. And so there usually is some kind of dip at about 100 and 110 games, usually lasts at least a month. The guys who are really good dig out of it. The guys who have some work to do see their numbers go down. And I think Adolis certainly saw his numbers go down in the second half, but he did play he bordered on 150 games. And Franco never really was tested in that regard. His numbers for 70 games are really, really good. But offensively, the numbers are very good. They're not historic like they were for Yordan Alvarez. The Rookie of the Year will be announced next week. It'll be interesting. This doesn't mean that Adolis Garcia didn't get votes for Rookie of the Year. He certainly did get some votes, and he certainly finished somewhere on some ballots. I think you vote for top 3 Rookies of the Year or top 5, ranked guys 1 through 5, and I expect that Garcia will finish in the top 5 in the American League, probably with either Ryan Mountcastle of Baltimore rounding out the top 5, or Emmanuel Clase of Cleveland, the former Ranger, rounding out that top 5. He had a great year as a reliever for the Indians. The last thing I wanted to touch on today is the Rangers have agreed on a contract for a hitting coach, Tim Hires, who had been with the Boston Red Sox the last 4 years and who had been a co-coach on the Los Angeles Dodgers staff with Chris Woodward in 2016 and 17. It gives them 2 of their 3 offensive-minded coaches. Donnie Ecker, as we wrote last week, was named the bench coach and the offensive coordinator. And I know in a football market like Dallas, that gets a lot of questions like, what is an offensive coordinator? Basically, this is a guy who's going to set the tone and the philosophy for hitting instruction from the major leagues on down. He'll be involved very much with the hitters, but he will also have some traditional bench coach responsibilities like the schedule in spring training, scheduling of workouts during the season, things like that. I think the really interesting thing here is that Ecker and Hires both oversaw teams in San Francisco and Boston that were among the major league leaders in runs scored, OPS plus. However you want to kind of dice it up, those 2 teams were in the top 4 in OPS. They were in the top 6 in runs scored, and they were both in the top 7 in OPS plus, which includes park factors, and both of those come into play with teams that play in San Francisco and Boston. They've still got to hire an assistant hitting coach, which will give them a three-man hitting staff. But I think that's a big part of the Rangers' attempt to improve the offense next year. Will be this group. I think it's really interesting that early on in the quarantine period, Cody Atkinson, who is now the Rangers' minor league hitting coordinator, Tim Hires, and Donnie Ecker all did kind of a group video chat for hitters and interested parties to raise funds. But these are guys who clearly have a rapport with one another, and that's going to be really important. I've covered. I started to count this up the other day. I don't know how many hitting coaches I've covered in 28 years on a baseball beat. Same with pitching coaches. I think they've all got great philosophies. I think it all comes down to how you communicate with individual players, pitchers or hitters, and how you relay information, how simple you make the information for guys to grasp. And that's what I think will be the focus here with Ecker and Hires is how easy is everything to grasp and how do they get their message across to hitters. I think Luis Ortiz and Kalex Krabby were very good instructors, and I think they had a very good plan, but they didn't get the results. And so you try somebody with a different message. So that's it. We've gone almost 17 minutes today, and hopefully we won't go nearly this long in the future. But I wanted to give you a kind of a look at everything that was going on with the club right now. We'll be back again either sometime later this week or maybe next week to talk a little bit more about free agency and any other moves the Rangers may make. But as always, if you would like to reach out, give me some feedback, give me stuff you'd like to hear about here, give me stuff that you'd like to ask about, particularly if you're willing to have your name or your Twitter handle associated with it. You can always email me at egrant@dallasnews.com or tweet me at Evan_P_Grant. Thanks, everybody, and we'll come up with a really cool official name for Ranger Roundup, Ranger Review, Ranger Ramblings, Rangers Revelry. I'm sure it'll be something alliterative because that's just how we roll here. But thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.